If you must sell your votes, make sure that the proceeds last you for 8 years. This was a comment on an Instagram post that I saw yesterday, and it is safe to say that this person has given the best advice that anyone can give a nation that is about to choose its leaders. Today's podcast will largely be dominated by quotes from the highly respected professor of law, Professor Lumumba of Kenya, because most of the things that he says about politics in Africa, I believe, are largely a reflection of the Nigerian political scene. It was Lumumba who said that Africans are in a business of canonizing its thieves and demonizing its saints, a true reflection of the event that has been happening in the past few days in my country. An aspirant stepped up, gave a vivid example of what he has achieved while he was in government, told the nation what he would do for his country, left his party because he felt what they did weren't aligning to his principles, and what he called irregularities, which we all know as Nigerians what he was talking about. But in all of this, most Nigerians still think that he's a joke, who will not win, and they will rather vote for the power-hungry, extremely corrupt set of politicians that we all know will do little or nothing for our country. The problem with our country is that we find it hard to believe when we see the right thing in front of us, because we have been so used to the corruption in the system that we doubt that anyone can grow above the extreme corruption in our country. But in our heart, we all need that change that everyone is seeking for. Hi, my name is Uncle Don, and you are listening to This Thing in the Mud. If you follow the trends over the past few days, you will understand why I have picked politics and election stories in Nigeria as a case study today. The past 1 week has been filled with political primaries for different positions in different political parties. I was having a banter with my friend 2 days ago about why I would vote for a particular presidential candidate in the coming elections. And he told me that I was wasting my vote because the person I wanted to vote for didn't belong to a popular party. It was a reminder that Nigerians largely vote for a party instead of the person contesting for the office. It also reminded me that most Nigerians see all politicians as the same, and the idea of if you can't win them, join them is very much in play in our country's political scape. Most Nigerians only wait to see who is popular and throwing out money here and there before they can cast their vote. This friend of mine even said that the only way to have change in our system is to join the bad eggs, do what they do, and then try creating the change that is needed. And then I asked the question, what if this comes back to haunt you? And what if it backfires? A question that I would like to put forth to my listeners today. So, to create a change in the system, do you have to dance to the tune of music that is being played and then switch it off when you are in power? Or can you even switch it off? Or is it better to come clean right from the very onset and stick to your principles? Lastly, I want to believe that Nigerians have taken a backseat after the expectation of the present government hasn't really turned out to be what they hoped for and expected in the runoff of election in 2015 and 2019. Nigerians were really hopeful that the switch from the then ruling PDP to APC would bring the much needed change in the country. But a lot hasn't really changed, and talking elections and new government is like trying to fool a victim of a scam a second time. A few days ago, 2 men were killed in Lagos during an election primaries. One of them was allegedly said to be a chairperson of a local government talks union, aka Area Boys, and the other one was just a fellow. Twitter was on fire. I saw a few tweets of people saying that they wouldn't come out from their houses on election day if this is what is happening just during the primaries. It is fair to say that people are reluctant about politics and the killings that are sometimes involved in elections, which makes it impossible to get a large pool of persons voting on election day. The bad eggs exploit this fear and put idiots in power, and we sit and complain for the next 8 years. I do not like talking about politics because it is something you cannot fully understand, especially in Nigeria. The formula is always different every 4 or 8 years. It is best to say that politicians in Nigeria are a set of human beings who think on their feet. They come up with genius ways of bribing the populace. They are probably one of the smartest set of human beings in Africa. Professor Lumumba once said, and I quote, "I held 250 town hall meetings. I articulated solutions to our problems in my constituency. My opponent did not campaign at all. He gathered money and showed up one day to the elections. He distributed money. He won. Africans are not moved by ideas. Their stomach leads them. While election in Nigeria can best be described as a game of casino played by a group of humans who look and sound like men of God, if your heart is not totally guarded, you will fall in love with them because they sound like God telling Abraham, "My son, your children shall be like the sons of the earth, and you will be a father of all nations." Sometimes we buy that crap from them without even checking if they have bought a pin in their life before. It is worse now that a few persons by the name of delegates now openly detect who the masses will vote in the next elections. They get money from aspirants and then make their choice for the masses. I was reading through a random tweet on Twitter the other day, and I couldn't help but marvel at the stories and the level that young people are now engaging and talking about the 2023 elections on Twitter. Some people call them Twitter warriors with no PVCs, which to an extent is true. But I also think it is not absolutely true. Social media might be a place where we air our views freely, but there are also people galvanizing others to get their PVCs for the coming elections. And it is very wrong for people to think that because you speak or comment on social media, you do not have PVCs to vote. Professor Lumumba once said that behind most of our so-called successful civil servants who have joined politics and businesses, there is a collapse or collapsing public institutions they once served. Which brings me to the next story. A former IG of police said that he was swindled of his life earnings when he retired from office as a police chief. He said that he was on his own when some men from a political party came and cajoled him to run for the Senate position. He had declined at first, but after much pressure and persuasion from the lads, telling him that he was the man for the job and he stood a good chance of winning, he had to give in and use his life savings to run campaigns until he was left with nothing. And he lost. One would ask why a police chief would be that daft not to know the antics of politicians in this country. But again, when you are part of a police system that does not command respect and integrity, karma is definitely going to catch up with you. Nigerian politics is not a place for the faint-hearted. Now in Nigeria, elections are mostly seen as a time of violence, betrayals, lies, deception, debt, and a host of other unpronounceable outcomes. But there has been something different in this period where there are a whole bunch of presidential aspirants. The APC, for example, which is the ruling party, has a lineup of aspirants who are either former friends or ministers pushing with great force to be the next president. While presidential forms are being set at ridiculous prices to deter unserious candidates in the APC, the PDP, on the other hand, utilize the concept of choosing a candidate that they believe has the financial capability of fighting the ruling party. According to Professor Lumumba, no matter how good you are, if you stay too long, you spoil it. A good dancer must know when to leave the stage. This is why the PDP recently had one of its strongest aspirants, who allegedly didn't believe in sharing cash payment to delegate for the nomination, left the party for another party. This gentleman, who goes by the name Peter Obi, has been forthcoming in his approach towards convincing the youth that he is a man for the job. But the problem is in the grassroots, where the poorest of the poor reside and where ruthless politicians take advantage and win. The story of redemption and transformation of a nation always lies in the hands of those who tore a different path. This is why I feel it is time for people to think critically before electing persons into office, regardless of political parties. The current systems of doing things in politics might be the norm, but it has to stop. In Professor Lumumba's words, if young Africans should have one duty, it should be to irritate those in power in such an organized manner that they have no choice but to do what is right. Again, I put to you, if you must sell your vote, make sure it sustains you for the next 8 years. Today is the last day of registration. I beg you, register online and get your PVC. And that is what is in the mud. Ciao. If you enjoyed this episode of This Thing in the Mud, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop us a comment on our YouTube and social media pages. My handle is at uncle_don, and it is spelled UNKL_DON on Instagram and Twitter. See you next week. All my love. This Thing in the Mod, storytelling at its very best.